Now then, people, and welcome back to the Just Joe football show. And of course, time for another Premier League review show. We haven't done one of these for quite some time. Obviously, the league's been all up in the air. We don't know whether we're coming or going, which games are going ahead, which games aren't. So it's been a bit all over the place, behind the scenes, if you could call it that, in WhatsApp group messages, behind the scenes. So we've just been trying to sort something out, and yeah, we've managed to do and put something together today. We're going to chat about Leeds United. We're going to take all the major talking points from yesterday's barnstormer of a game, to be fair, between Liverpool and Spurs. We'll find out what's going on with West Ham. And then, yeah, just have a little chat about the state of refereeing, I think, in the Premier League as a whole, because there was one where I believe Xhaka should have been sent off against us as well, which was a shocker that didn't even get a yellow card. But there you go. But before we do that, let's have a chat to the guests. Guests, can you call them that? They're part of the furniture, really, aren't they? Kev, we'll come to you first of all. How are you doing, Kev?
I'm really good. Yeah, really good. Looking forward to Christmas now. It's a difficult one for me for obvious reasons, but I'm just want to get on with it. I want to get my kids back from college and what have you. So just looking forward to the next few days.
Yeah, same. I did have a Christmas top actually, right? But because I've got a green screen, it literally looked like a floating head. So I thought, like, I can't wear that. You know, like it had like red thing. I thought, fuck it. Like my partner's
just for the
me, and I was like, I'm gonna wear it just for the crack. And I put it on, and I literally looked like a floating head with a red set of bells around me. That's about it. So I was like, right, I'll make a quick change. Matt, how are you doing, mate? Harry Kane scored, mate. When, by the way, I took him out of my team.
Yeah, he scored, but he did then miss 6 sitters. So you know it's kind of hard to look at it. I'm sorry you took him out of your team, but it was certainly an entertaining game. I'm both very happy and very frustrated with how it went. But I've got my hot chocolate and my Plymouth Argyle mug, so I'm ready to go. That's all I need for Christmas.
Why Plymouth Argyle?
Why not Plymouth Argyle?
Oh, well, why?
It's very confusing.
I used to analyze them for Opta, so. You kind of fall in love with them when you start watching them a little bit. So.
Green Army! Do you remember that advert? Green Army! Well, I've got my Berardi and Pablo Hernandez mug, and to be fair, we could do with just players, just people in general, to be at the football club. That would help, to be honest. Corey, how are you doing, mate? All right? I haven't seen you for ages, man. I've missed you, mate. I can't lie.
Yeah, I missed too, mate. It's a shame both our teams are struggling at the minute. Someone actually pulled up the form table from when we beat Liverpool, and I think we've got 5 points out of possible 18. So it hasn't been great. Obviously, the Chelsea win was a bit of a buzz, but yeah, we'll get into it, mate. We've obviously got a big game on Wednesday against Spurs, so fingers crossed that break against Norwich, we're a bit more rejuvenated. Antonio, he's had a couple of sleeps, and fingers crossed he turns up, because I tell you what, amongst the West Ham fan base, it's getting very much time to drop him and rotate. So, yeah, let's talk about, mate.
Yeah, January as well. January soon come, and it can't come quick enough for me. So that'll give us loads to get our teeth into, I think, because I expect you to do business. Obviously, Spurs probably will churn some of the squad. Whether Liverpool will, I don't know. Just don't know.
There's rumours that we're looking at one.
Okay.
One. Whether it comes off or not.
Do you know who that is? Or
Dennis Zakaria.
Okay.
Whether there's any truth in it or not, I don't know. But his contract is up at the end of the season. Bunch and Gladbach aren't doing anything, and I think they'd appreciate the cash now rather than let him walk for nothing. And we need a backup 6, and yesterday showed that.
Yeah. 100%.
Definitely. Well, before we get into yesterday's game, I want to talk obviously about Leeds United. Since we did one of these, since I went on my little trip to Paris, you know, we've and this is the first show since then, we've conceded 14 goals, 7 of them coming obviously against Manchester City, which I did a watch along for, which was rough. Like, I can't lie. At the end, I was just like clapping, like when De Bruyne scored that screamer. Although, to be fair, it was in like 30 yards of space. There was no one within arm's touch of him. It's sort of fallen off a cliff at Leeds United. I don't think any of us, if we're being really honest, expected anything. over this tough run of fixtures, and obviously we've got Liverpool Boxing Day as well, so it's going to get worse before it gets better. But I didn't expect the manner of the defeats. Of course, we're missing 9, 10. Before Robin Koch came back at the weekend, it was 10 first-team players. It's a madness, really, because Leeds United have one of the highest vaccination rates, along with Liverpool, I think, in the whole league. And then we've sort of been penalised, really, because we've got so many players vaccinated, and therefore none of them have got COVID. They're actually genuinely injured. Then we've still got to play, and I'm not bemoaning that. Like, I've seen people say I want it to be a circuit breaker, etc., but I'm not about that. I'd rather just see football. I miss it when it's not around. But yeah, we've been so poor. I think the Arsenal game, for me, because this might sound mad, but it hurt a lot more than the 7-0 to City. And the reason I say that is because City on their day can blow teams away, like any team. Mm-hmm. Liverpool, the same. Them two level above. Obviously, we competed against Chelsea. Shouldn't have lost the game if it weren't for Click with a silly foul on Rudiger. It was just needless. We lose the game. But Arsenal, and I said this on my post-match, and I mean it with the best will in the world, because I do like Arsenal. I like what Arteta is doing there. But it's Arsenal, and the way that we were beaten soundly, especially in that first half. It was embarrassing. If I'm honest, it was really tough to watch, especially in the ground. And because it was an evening kickoff, everyone had been on the ale and came back for the second half, and people are arguing, and it was just not a nice place to be. You know what it's like when it gets like that in grounds, and everyone's like, I actually clapped a pass from Forshaw to Rafinha, and the guy next to me, who's normally all right, but was absolutely steamboated, went, "What are you clapping for?" I was like, calm down, bro. Do you know what I mean? But it was one of them ones. But yeah, I just obviously want to get an outsider's perspective, because I speak to Leeds fans regularly on this channel. We get a lot in the comments. But I just wanted to get an outsider's perspective on what you think about Leeds United, where they currently are. Are these pastings going to hamper us? Because let's be honest, we weren't expected to get results. So just to give me your overriding thoughts, I'll start with you, Corey, because I know you're a secret Leeds fan. You take.
Mate, you know what? Let's be honest. With the football at the minute getting cancelled, Leeds is the game to watch. So yeah, I've watched a lot of you. In fairness, like I can completely sympathise with you with the Man City game. I thought Man City were unbelievable. I genuinely thought, and I was quite impressed with Man City's level of intensity. Normally in games like that, they'll be 3-0 up and they'll just take their foot off the gas. Yeah. But he was really trying to make a statement, Pep. So I felt sorry for you in that sense. The Arsenal game is, look, you can't sugarcoat it. It's horrific. The defending is absolutely woeful. And I don't think Arsenal did anything that clever tactically. All Lacazette did was just drop deeper. And you'll see Saka and Martinelli, they'll drop deep, force your players a little bit further up, and then they'll just run in behind. And that was it. And then even when you break it down in terms of the goals, the breakdowns of play, they're not clearing the ball. There's no structure to the back four because they're not properly set. That's what would frustrate me. But it's not the. Don't get me wrong, West Ham and Leeds, we're not the same in terms of the seasons and where we're going. But the minute with West Ham, I look at it and think defensively, we've been poor in terms of dealing with pressure. We've also not been great in the final third. And I look at Leeds, and the one time you were any threat really in that first half was a long ball to Rafinha in behind. And that is also the concern with me when you're looking at Leeds. It's defensively. I think you always run that risk. You had it last season. This season, again, going forward, there isn't enough. And I mean, I wouldn't harp on too much about the injuries. I do think that makes a difference. I think if Calvin's in there, he shores it up, no question. But at the same time, I think you've got to look at it tactically, particularly with Bielsa, particularly with the press. Is it right for him to do that? Because I look at Leeds, and when you're actually more aggressive from the front, you get hold of the ball a little bit more, and you can get a bit more control in the game. Yeah. But at the minute, it's so tepid. It's so tepid. It's too easy. It's too easy for any team, not just Arsenal or Man City. So, yeah, I wouldn't read too much into it. I know it's frustrating, and it is really poor, and Bielsa does have to address it at some point, whether it's just tweaking the system a little bit. He did it last season against Man City away. He did it against some of the bigger teams last year. We just kept you a little bit more compact, and you got the result. But again, these games, I wouldn't imagine Leeds were going to win anyway. I expect you to put a bit of performance in against Arsenal. Liverpool's a write-off. Yeah, you're very fortunate that the league is so tight down the bottom. I think that's where you're at. And if you can get to January, you can get 2 or 3 in, you can get a couple of injuries back, I expect you to be fine. Fine. But it's tough. Trust me,
Yeah.
even I was watching it as a West Ham fan, thinking, I don't know, in the ground, I would have been fuming. I was fuming when we conceded against Martinelli with Dawson and Sofa.
Your lot would have been booing us off at half time, wouldn't they?
Yeah, it's embarrassing what he was doing for West Ham. Honestly, that's a different story for a different day. But yeah. I don't really know what to say, mate. I feel for you a little bit going into that Liverpool game. I've got to be honest. It's going to be tough. The only thing is they've got injuries as well, or they've had COVID situations, so maybe they kind of relinquish a little bit of the full strength side. But even so.
Yeah, definitely. Just get this in. Same old Corey, try to discredit and belittle Arsenal again. Hold that L we gave you last Wednesday, mate.
Well, when did I discredit them? When did
I didn't think you did either, mate.
No, I didn't. They're just sensitive. They celebrate like they won the title because they're top 4 and they're 3 points above West Ham or something weird like that. I was gutted. We'll get into it later. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
but,
we will. Just on that, Matt. Before I come to you, obviously, I know you're a data-driven guy. I listen and watch All Stats, aren't we, a lot. I know Corey's actually been on their podcast. Really, really knowledgeable guys, and they put out a piece to say, like, quite surprisingly, because you wouldn't believe it, but Corey's bang on, is that the actual thing that's changed this season is Leeds United's attacking numbers. Our XG is massively down, whereas goals against is actually more or less exactly the same, if not a little bit better this season, but we're still getting battered. So I think there's a lot in there, what Corey says about how Leeds are not able to maintain attacks, and the Bielsa system is very much attacks the best form of defence, you know what I mean? And if you haven't got Bamford holding it up and he's not able to bring the fullbacks in because, Ayling's not playing at right back and Junior Firpo's having a stinker, that in actual fact, because we're unable to have prolonged possession and, prolonged attacks, then we're always just under the cosh, which, it's not ideal. And the quicker we get players back, the better. What have you been your thoughts, mate? What I'm hearing and seeing a lot in the comments, right, is we need to genuinely, there is people out there, Bielsa out, which is insane, and it angers me. I've got someone I regarded as a friend. I no longer call him a friend, and I've told him that because I've seen him on about Bielsa out. I think it's a madness because some of these guys would have us go out and replace Bielsa, but I put a tweet out yesterday to say that, a lot of fans would probably like us to adopt, say, Newcastle's approach in these sort of games. Yet Newcastle have conceded like 11 goals and still got no points in the last 3. So I don't know whether it's a case of ripping it up and starting again. What are your thoughts, Matt?
I do agree with Corey what you're saying there, that the system probably does need to change, but I wouldn't say that in a way of kind of criticising Bielsa and the system that he does use, or criticising the players that are out there, because in a Bielsa system, I think we've seen it quite a bit in the managers that have been in, kind of coached by Bielsa and what they've come to make their philosophies, especially from a personal standpoint in Pochettino. You need very particular players to fulfill their system. And these are players that have been handpicked. You can say the same about Klopp. You can say the same about Guardiola. They've handpicked these players to fulfill that system. And quite often when one player is missing from that, it can kind of throw things off a little bit. And you look at your record with Calvin Phillips. I think it's since he came to the Premier League, you've lost 14 and 41 with him. Or lost 11 and 41 with him and 11 and 14 without him. So it's very clear he, for example, is a very key player in that team. But when you're missing, 10 plus first team players, and you're down to 9 first team players available, you have to play players like Cody Drama and Joe Gelhardt, who I think are very good prospects for the future, especially Gelhardt, who I've been really impressed with. And even when he was in the under 23s, I was very impressed with him. They're great players to step in, but it's not an easy thing to go from in anything from the under 23s right up to that Premier League side. Yeah. But especially when you're in such a physical demanding, such a very particular tactical style. And I think that is where Leeds are suffering. And if for Bielsa, it is a case of kind of adjusting the system and maybe being a bit more, kind of shoring it up at the back a bit more to stop the leak that's happening. Well, then do that for a month or two until you start getting those players back. But you can't ignore the bad luck you've had with injuries. It is absolutely insane. It feels like every single day there's a new news story out there saying, Cresswell dislocates his shoulder in training, or Bamford is injured again, or Phillips is out for an extra few weeks. It is shocking. I know there's suspensions and stuff in there as well. But I'm not worried for Leeds in terms of the squad that you have. But if this bad luck with injuries continues, and there's nothing to say that it won't, I think you could be in a bit of trouble then. But like Corey said as well, it's so tight down there that I think there's you do have a bit of luck there. Once you do start getting your players back, even if it's for the last 2-3 months of the season, there's not to say in the last 10 games that you don't pick up 15-20 points that could propel you away from that relegation zone. And we'll be looking back at the start of next season thinking, how do we think Leeds were in a battle? But it is concerning against Man City, an incredible side. one of the best I've ever watched in the Premier League, if not the best, playing at the pinnacle. Kevin De Bruyne, just an absolute superstar. I know in the early stages of that game, he did gift them quite a bit. Especially it was the first goal he gifted to them as well. You're not helping yourselves there.
All seven.
All seven. Arsenal was a bit of a different story. You know, you'd expect to maybe compete a little bit more in that game. But depending on how injuries go, I think that will potentially be a decisive factor in Leeds season.
Yeah, for sure. I think we do have, well, Bielsa said that maybe Bamford, Strauch and James may be fit for Liverpool. Not that it'll have any sort of impact on the result, I think, against Liverpool, but it's something, and I think the club have to invest in January. It's quite interesting, like I've heard a lot of stuff about, you know, these high-pressing sides, you know, there've been links made to, I'm not saying in any sort of way comparative in terms of skill set or anything, but there seems to be a 3-year cycle with these managers that like to play with this high pressing style. And I forget who wrote the book, and my friend Connor and Allstats and we have spoken about it. And it was like Pep at Barca and stuff. They seem to have this 3-year cycle. And if it's not rehashed and rejuvenated and new players brought in, then there's a lot on them in terms of both mentally and physically. And there's been a lot said about Bielsa burnout every season. However, Leeds know it's a fallacy, but I do feel at this moment in time, 3 years into his tenure, or fourth season, if you like, that maybe we are experiencing a bit of that, because the players don't seem to be at the same level that we were. And because the summer went so poor in terms of incomings, there's not really been, you know, any rejuvenation with the squad. We need so many bodies, to be honest. And, you know, we obviously won't get a lot in January, but I think there'll be a massive overhaul of the squad in the summer if we do stay in the division, which I think we will, because I think there are 3 worse teams than us. But there's so much on January, because if we don't spend and say Newcastle do, then I still think Newcastle have got the wrong man in charge, and I think there's still a thing that Rafa rocks up there. I've just got a mad feeling, but we'll wait and see. But Kev, before we move on to Liverpool, Tottenham, just give us a bit on Leeds United, mate. What are your thoughts?
I think you're in a world of trouble.
Yeah.
Your main problem is not just getting players back; is the players that you get back are coming back from injury or probably being rushed back.
Yes.
And the way the league has defined these new rules around availability for players, the 14 plus 1 or 13 plus 1, whatever it is, you run the risk of getting these players back and them re-injuring themselves and landing you in even more trouble. Newcastle will spend, and they might be able to spend their way to safety, because nobody in the bottom 6 is pulling away. Everyone is getting bunched up. You need to start putting points on the board, and it doesn't matter how it comes, and it doesn't matter who it comes against. How can you put it this way? Bielsa has to adapt his style to the players he has available to get a result. And if he's not capable of doing that, then I understand the fans' frustration, because you can very easily find yourself in a losing run that is very, very difficult to get out of. And losing becomes a habit and a mentality, and then you're starting looking beneath you instead of looking above you. It's a mental thing as well as a physical thing. And you have to be honest about it. I can't remember the last time this season that I looked at Leeds and thought, you were unlucky there. Or, you know, the Chelsea one aside, Chelsea were poor, and he should have taken advantage of that and got a point and got a boost off it. But other than that, squad depth, tactics, back four being dragged here, there, and everywhere. And the other side of it is you've got the league is full of very good players and very good managers. Tactically, will engineer situations to draw Leeds players out of position and exploit it. That's, you get away with it for one season. You manage Sheffield United got away with it for one season. You don't get away with it twice. And sides, when you come up, the second season, managers learn, tacticians learn, and they learn ways to get around how systems are set up. I mean, saying there's 3 worse sides than Leeds at the minute, Watford are going to get decimated with AFCON if it goes ahead. So between now and the end of January, you've got to figure out a way of creating a gap because Newcastle will spend their way out of this as bad. And I don't think Eddie Howe's the right manager either, but they will spend their way out of this. Then you're
You
down.
think they stay up, Kev, do you?
I think they'll stay up by default because they need a goal scorer and they need to address the spine. And the thing is, any player that Leeds go in for, Newcastle can outspend you. So
they won't be moving in circles. I hear what you're saying, but I just think we'll go for. I don't know. I don't think
it might be a different
for mercenaries out there.
There's when you actually look at the table, there's not much in it. You know what I mean? There's not enough in it to say that you're safe.
No,
I mean,
definitely
the last time I was on here, I said you're in danger of getting dragged into a fight. You're in the thick of it now, and either something has to come right in January, or players have to come back fit and stay healthy, and you have to be lucky, you know. And you deserve luck because you've had none so far this season, you know. But we saw last year with us how injuries can wreck a season, and expectations have to be managed.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, with the best will in the world, if you get January right and you get bodies back, you'll be fine. But there's 3 ifs in that sentence.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And you can better sides than Leeds have gone down and stayed down for a long time. The squad, it 1 to 14 is okay, but you've an awful lot of inexperienced players at that. You know, you've sides who come up through the under-23s who are playing under-23 football, but being in a relegation fight is a completely different new thing for an awful lot of players, especially young players, and handling that comes, you don't know how they're going to deal with it until they're in it, you know?
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. I mean, I think get January right and you'll be fine, but you have to do something.
Yeah, I agree, mate. I agree.
You can't keep doing the same thing.
There's been so many calls for the under-20. This is, you know what it's like. You know, Bielsa's not doing well. Play the kids. They're so good. These under-23s we've got, etc., etc. Cody Drama will be a great right back. However, he was rubbish in that first half against Martinelli. He was all over the shop. There's only, for me, 2 that are ready out of the crop that we've got, and that's Creswell. Unfortunately, he would have played, but he got injured in Tringy, and he showed that against West Ham. Corey will tell you he did a great job on Antonio and Gelhardt. They're the only 2 that, for me, are currently ready. And you can sort of see in this.
Yeah, but they're ready to be in the squad. Do you know what I mean? They're ready to be in the squad, to be dropped in for 20 minutes here and there.
Oh, no, that's what I'm saying.
You know
it's
what I mean?
needs must, but they're ready to be in the
that.
squad. I just think there's been such a call for the under-23s, and yes, they're not brought in the right situation. We have to throw them in. But Cody Drama, Somerville, McKinstry, these lads, they're just not. They're not.
You can't throw in under 23 like a lot of under 23s at the same time, and that's the case with any fan base. Like with West Ham, everyone goes immediately. You see one player come through that's near the first team, and everyone begs him to start. And I'm going, you're throwing a kid in there. It's not that straightforward. And in a game like Arsenal, again, it's for me. Liverpool sometimes do it right, where they'll bring in one youth team player, they'll bring in Harvey Elliott, and that'll be all they bring in, and then they'll kind of bed it in, and you don't disbalance the squad too much. To do that, it's tough, man. It's tough. Martinelli did have him on toast, but what do you expect?
A very good player, though. Martinelli's a very, very
good player. He's a phenomenal player. How he's not started for Arsenal, I've got no idea.
But this is the thing, though, as well. So I was going to make that link, and I keep making it with Gelhardt, because everyone says start him, but I keep likening Foden and Pep, the way that Pep managed Foden. You could argue Arteta's done the similar sort of job with Martinelli, really. Because I know there's, from watching Arsenal YouTube, has been screaming for this kid to start for a while. Yeah. Now he's brought him in. He scored 2 against us. He got 1 against West Ham, I think, and he looks different gravy. So
we wanted him 2 years ago before he got his last big injury. Klopp was really big on him after a League Cup game, and a lot of the Brazilian lads that were in our squad apparently were really talking him up. Definitely, one to watch out for. Klopp was really big on him, more so Pep Linders actually than Klopp, but they were both really, really trying to get him. But the big injury came, and I think now he's going to stay loyal with Arsenal because Arsenal stayed loyal to him. He's got a big future ahead of him, that kid.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. But let's round off Leeds United there and say that they are staying up. Lock it in. Clip it up. We are staying up. I genuinely believe that anyway. And I keep getting battered for it by Leeds fans, but it's what it is. I have faith. But let's talk about, obviously, yesterday's game. What an absolute barnstormer it was between Liverpool and Spurs. Do you know what? I was so frustrated because I had a bet on. It's like about 4 or 5 teams, like over 1.5 goals, all this sort of stuff, like all mashed together over the fixtures across Europe that were on. And it got to the evening, I was like, Liverpool all day, man. They're not going to let me down, are they? And I thought my bet was in. I was like buzzing, some extra money for Christmas, and obviously it ended 2-2, man, which is wounding. But who wants to go first, Matt or Kev? Because I'm quite.
Well, Matt was the home team, so let Matt go first.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Matt because Matt's ready to go, and then I'll just let Kev boil over. But go ahead, Matt.
Look, there's a lot to be frustrated about from both sides of this. With so much that went on the pitch, I think Tottenham were absolutely sensational. And that's the main thing that I want to focus on, because I've seen Liverpool fans all over Twitter being like, oh, well, we were missing Van Dijk. We didn't have our best centre-back. We were missing our best midfield. We were missing Christian Romero, and we were missing Pierre-Emile Højbjerg and Oliver Skip in the middle of there. The problems that they had in their team, we had the exact same ones. We were also missing Reguilon out on the left-hand side. And Sessegnon came in for his first Premier League start in 2 years. We had to start Harry Winks and Dele Alli, who 3 days before the game had been told he was leaving the club in January. And from first minute to last, I thought we were absolutely sensational. And Klopp can talk down what we were doing whatever way he wants, saying, oh, they played 3-5-2 and kicked the ball as far as they could. It was a tactic that ripped his team open 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times throughout that entire game. And if any of our players could take their chances, that game would have been over by half time. Yeah. You know, Kanate and Matip, 2 very good centre backs, 2 that I rate really, really highly, but they couldn't deal with what we were doing in there. And I understand that Tyler Morton playing in front of them is very different to having the security of Fabinho or Henderson or
Thiago.
Even a Thiago in there as well. It is very different, but that doesn't change the fact that they could not deal with what we were doing. You can blame the high line, or you can blame, I think Dele Alli. It wasn't high line, what are you saying?
No, high line wasn't a problem.
Interesting.
Let Matt have his bit. Let Matt have his bit, Kev.
Our high line has never been a problem. In fact, our problems stem from when our high line players drop.
So what do you blame for long balls over the top getting us in behind your defence time and time?
Villa last season. Case in point.
A biggest part of our problem was stopping the ball at source. And the big difference is when you've got a Naby coming back from injury, a Milner coming back from injury, and a youth player making his Premier League debut, all in the same day, who would have found out on the morning of the game, this is the 3 you're playing. You're going to get defenders and midfielders with time on the ball more so than you would have done if you were playing against Henderson, Thiago, and Fabinho. That's just a fact. And as soon as you let someone like Ndombele or any of the centre-backs of Spurs that they played, if you let them get their head up and let them play long balls into space, more often than not, they're going to get it. And that's what happened. It wasn't a 3-5-2, it was a 5-3-2, and Conte had 2 weeks to work on it, and he did really, really well.
Oh, no, don't even start with that, Kev. I'm sorry.
So he didn't have 2 weeks off to work on shape.
No, because the training ground was closed. Half our players had COVID.
The training ground was closed for 4 days.
Which is 1 day off a week of work. The training ground was closed. Half our players had COVID. You cannot possibly say we had 2 weeks to prepare. Up until the day of the Leicester game, we were preparing for that. So we had 2 days to prepare for the Liverpool.
You're working on the same shape. You're not going to play any different. You're going to play a 5-3-2 for the rest of the season because it works, and it's worked for Conte.
That's not 2 weeks. That's not 2 weeks to work on that shape.
Of course it is. But you're working on that shape full stop because that's what you got.
But you can't say we had 2 weeks to prepare for that game. We didn't. The entire club was in absolute pandemonium. The training ground was closed. There were over 25
See how
COVID
we're doing
cases.
this on a video call. That's how they do. That's how tactics.
They can get out on the pitch and work on.
They don't have to be out on the pitch. They don't have to be out on the pitch. These days, they can do it via this. They can work on shape with video analysis, and then when they get back into the training ground, because they were only out for 4 days, then they can work. If that's the case of your argument, you could say Jurgen Klopp had 5 years to prepare for this game. He's been working on this shape and these tactics for the last 5 years. We weren't preparing for the Liverpool game for 2 weeks. We had other fixtures that we were planning on playing. Did you watch the game?
I did watch the game. We were by far the better team.
You were far the better team. You had less of the ball. You had less shots on target. You
come on.
had better chances, to be fair. You had better chances. Lloris made better saves. But overall, a 2-2 over the whole game was a fair result. That's just...
You can't possibly believe that.
If
I was
Dele Alli
disappointed.
scored that one when it's 1-0, it's game over.
It was really poor. It was really poor from Dele Alli.
Great
Really
save by Alisson.
Yeah, it was a good save though.
It was a good save, but Alisson had sold himself. Alisson had already made up his mind that he'd read Dele Alli's foot movement and he'd already gone to that side. It was terrible from Dele Alli. All he had to do was stop and play it with his left foot into the other side. Empty goal. He had loads of time. It was just poor from Dele Alli. The Son chance, the one that Kane put him through for, couldn't wrap his foot around, should have done better. It was a narrow miss, but that was a difficult chance because it was a poor cross from Kane. The best chance of all was the Dele Alli one. That was a shocking miss. You know, I mean, the goal that they got was an absolute beautiful ball by Ndombele to slip Kane through that took Konate out of the game completely. You know, that was a brilliant finish. That was a pure Harry Kane goal. But overall, Spurs could have been out of sight at halftime, but you were 2-1 down because of poor finishing. You know, it was telling in the second half how much rest and recuperation has helped you guys because of how fresh you looked. And it was telling...
Half our team are recovering from COVID.
No, they're not. You don't know that.
Yes, they are.
You absolutely haven't a clue.
There were over 10 cases in the first team. We don't have many players to pick from. I know 7 of them. I can name 7 of them. But
the club have never named any of them. So unless you've got...
Nobody has actually named them.
Nobody knows. There could have been 10 under-23 players who were in contact with the senior team. We don't know. Because Spurs...
We do know. I do know.
No,
I do. I said the exact same things to Corey and Joe 2 days before everything came out. And Locks in the group as well. I know exactly who had it. And I know some of them were on that pitch yesterday.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
I don't get
I don't know. What's the UK rules on... Because, Joe, you guys live over there. We don't. Is it 10 days quarantine once you contracted COVID? It's interesting.
It doesn't matter.
I don't know. They change all the time, mate, over here. I don't have a clue. I don't have a clue what's going on, mate. They're all having cheese and wine parties and that, mate. Well, we're all locked up, so...
Yeah. It also doesn't matter what the general rules are, because since day one, there's been different rules for elite sports people, which is why last summer elite sports people were allowed to go back playing, which is why they're traveling across Europe playing football as well. Yeah. Conte said himself there were at least 8 COVID cases in that first team. We know for a fact that there was. You can't possibly say in any way, in any possible logic, that Tottenham benefited from 2 weeks off from our team having COVID.
It was evident in the second half performance how much more running you were capable of doing. That the 2 weeks rest has benefited you. What would
Kev, this sounds a little bit salty, mate. I can't lie.
Why is it salty? We got a point.
Sounds a little bit salty.
We got a point when we should have been hammered out of sight. So how is it salty? We should have been hammered out of sight.
The entire reaction from every part of Liverpool, from Robertson saying, "Oh, I shouldn't have given the referees the chance to make the decision," from Klopp coming out and saying, "Oh, Tottenham just kicked the ball as far as they could," and to every Liverpool fan.
What do you expect from Klopp? Do you know what I mean? He's always going to say stuff like that.
Exactly.
Right, yeah. I forgot. Yeah, Matt, what was it? We're the most hated fans. So obviously, I'm one of the most hated people.
No, your fan base is the most hated.
No, I'm one of the most hated people. We're the most hated club. Mm-hmm. We're the most hated manager. You're one step shy away from saying something else that will get you in a lot of trouble. So be very careful when you start fishing on Twitter.
What am I one step away from saying?
Think it through logically. What did you say? What did you say in your comment earlier on today?
You're one of the most hated fan base, one of the most hated clubs, and you've one of the most hated managers. Mm-hmm. Those are 3 facts. What am I one step away from saying?
All right. If you believe that, that's fine. Can't help you there. But think about this. We're the only thing that's stopping this league turning into the Bundesliga with a one horse train. Because no one else is capable of catching Man City. This league is very close to becoming a Man City train that no one else can stop. Chelsea are going to give it a go. Man United are nowhere near. We're the only thing that makes this league competitive at the top end. There's competition all for European places. There's competition in mid-table. But at the top of the league, there's no competition without Klopp and Guardiola. Now, you can hate us for it, but we don't have oil money backing us.
I don't know what to say. This got very intense.
Well, I was talking about the game until it went sideways, and we haven't even got to the refereeing decisions yet.
No, we haven't. I don't know what to say, Corey. Help me.
No, I don't know what to say.
I feel like these two are wanting a straightener right now. Now, listen, look, I said to him on Twitter, like, the way that the Liverpool fans, like, my whole timeline, obviously, was full of disputes about the refereeing decision, and I can't lie, I laughed a little bit and enjoyed it because I know that the way that the Liverpool fans vehemently backed up the Pascal Strout red card when it was absolute BS, and then to see you guys on the other end of it, it's enjoyable, but that's fun. That's football, right? It's not personal. That's football.
Yeah, I forgot that. Breaking someone's ankle is okay these days.
Yeah, but you could. Come
you
on
can't
now.
because it was a red card, Joe.
No, man, because you talk. Let's not go there.
No, let's not go there because we've been there before.
Yeah, because Kev, you're saying, like, I'm saying, oh, it's okay, broke his ankle. I'm not saying that.
No, it was a bad tackle.
No,
and that's why, look.
We'll not go there. We'll not go there.
The problem I've got with referees in general is it is going to take something like this to happen again where someone does get their leg broke. Genuinely. Robbo was lucky that he managed to get his leg up off the ground. And
yeah, but at the same time, Robbo tried to snap someone in half.
And it was a straight red card. That was three mistakes.
Do you not think, right? Let's do this then, if you want to speak about
we'll just chat about the referees.
But let's do this though, right? Who has intended to hurt someone more, Pascal or Andy Robertson?
Or Kane.
Pascal went for the ball.
Yeah,
he made a genuine
Kane,
attempt for the ball. So, unfortunately, intent has absolutely nothing to do with it because the referee can't read someone's mind.
No, I get it.
Intent is nothing to do with it.
But that's what I'm saying, though.
It's intensity of the challenge.
But let's talk about the refs. The refs. Obviously, Corey, you'll have watched the game. Obviously, these guys have a vested interest in it.
But there was another game yesterday. The
Newcastle City. Yeah.
The Newcastle Man City.
Yeah, the Edison one. Yeah.
That was arguably. It was almost. Sorry, Corey. 1 second. It was almost a case that this week the referees decided nothing was happening. Nothing was being given unless it was an absolute hatchet job. Last week, it was pretty much right. You know, the fouls were being given, the penalties were being given, the free kicks were being given, the cards were being given, and they decided this week we're going to rein it in. And the writing was on the wall during the Leeds game, how the referees were going to referee the games over this short period. So, and the worst of it is, now with the diminished squads that players have and clubs have to play with 14+1, that players are going to be playing 4 games in the space of 8-9 days with reduced squad sizes, so less chance to rotate. There's more chances for lapses of concentration and these type of injuries if refs don't get a grip of these games. Sorry, Corey.
Yeah, I forgot what we were talking about. What, the Liverpool Spurs game. Look, there's so many different things in that. I think it spoiled it, to be fair. Like, I know people may argue it rolled it up and it made it a little bit more intense, but for me, I think there's a lot of decisions in there I missed the Harry Kane one at the time, and I didn't have a clue what people were talking about. And I watched it back and was like, "That's a straight red." Yeah, and I think if you're comparing it over the weekend, for me again, it's with Granit Xhaka as well. He's gone straight over the ball. He's got nothing. You've had a similar challenge, exactly about 30 seconds, maybe a minute after, and again, he's got the yellow card for it. And it's this kind of, for me, it's the VAR. Like, I don't want to go on and on and on about big club bias, but sometimes it does irk me a little bit when the VAR says, we'll look at that, but we won't look at this. Surely it's got to be consistent in terms of how you're looking at each and every tackle. Because for me, if you will see the Harry Kane one again, it's a straight red. He got a yellow for it, didn't he? So he got yellow for that.
That's worse.
Yeah. And, you know, I think if Robertson had got a red card, which again he did, like he should have done, and Kane had got a red card, I think there wouldn't have been, I don't think anyone would, I think the way you got to look at it a little bit is, would anyone complain if either of those were reds? The answer is no. So, and then you're breaking it down in terms of the Jota incident. Was that a penalty?
Oh, it's a stone wall, bro.
For me, it was, because again, and
Stonewall.
I find it a bit strange from Emerson Royale, because you see Sanchez is in front of him. Lloris has got the angle locked off. He's got enough in front of him for a bit of protection not to dive in like that, and yet he's been completely reckless. So for me, that's a pen as well. Every decision that kind of didn't get called should have got called. And then I think the Salah one, the Salah handball, again, I'm sure Kev will say different, and obviously it's come off his arm.
It's because it's changed. Yeah, it's because the rules changed this season. Last season, that would have been chalked off.
Yeah.
That would have been chalked off last season. But because so much more has happened since, because it was unintentional, because so much happened since, from that moment to the time Trent put the ball in for Robert to finish it, that's why it wasn't called out.
Yeah.
But last season, those goals were always chalked off.
Kev, can I ask what you think about the foul on Harry Winks in the box when Joel Matip sat on his back in midair?
Yeah, it was clumsy. And if it was inside the box, it's a good shout for a pen.
It was inside the box.
It was borderline.
See, I've rewatched it all before coming on Match of the Day. Match of the Day 2. You know, I finished work and stuck that on as well, just so, because my memory's not great.
I will say this though about Klopp, obviously dug him out. I do think he was right in what he was saying after the game. Like, I was listening to it and thinking genuinely, I was kind of thinking, I don't know where he's got it wrong. Normally I'm a bit like, you know what Klopp's like, he's a bit aerated. He obviously went up to the ref at the end of the game. Listen to him, I was like, to be honest, he has got a point there. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's what, I'm sick and tired of going over refereeing decisions, not obviously because you've said to, because we have to, but I've seen it with West Ham. Do you know what I mean? Sort of Soufal gets sent off midweek for winning the ball clean and giving away a penalty. I couldn't get my head around it. I couldn't believe what I was watching. So it does worry me at the minute, because it seems to be every single week, every single game.
It changes. Every week it changes. The consistency changes. And it seems like they get together on a Monday or a Tuesday after the midweek, after the weekend's worth of games. They review what they've done. And next week, they referee games completely differently. I mean, what hurt Klopp more than anything was the foul. The Jota pen, but a couple of minutes later, he blew up for a free kick for an identical challenge in front of him. That's when he got booked. He absolutely blew his lid at that.
Do you know what? I hear what you say. I have no sympathy for Klopp, though, in all honesty, just because of the way he goes on. I do like him. I think he's a great manager and that, but I have no sympathy for him.
Oh, no.
And obviously that won't bother anyone, but I have no sympathy for him, the way he goes on, and he's what it is, swings and roundabouts.
The way he went up to the ref after that game was shocking as well. Go up saying, "I've no problems with referees, only you." Like I really don't see any benefits from that.
That's elite. Do you know what though? That's elite level, because that manager there, Ferguson was the same. He shouldn't be doing it, but that plants a seed in that guy's head.
Any other manager who does that gets a fine. Any other manager. Pochettino did an identical thing 2 years ago. He got a fine for it. Klopp just this idea that it's all this cash in and it's all. No,
if he gets a fine, he deserves it. I don't think he'll complain about it.
He won't get it though.
But he should. But so what? He's right. 14 games.
It's mad because
14 games he's refed for Liverpool and not one pen. Now, when you think about the amount of times that Salah, Mane, and Firmino,
how many in them games should have been pens, Kev?
Think about it. If you're playing 14 games with Mane, Salah, and Firmino in a box.
No, but I'm assuming you guys have done the research. Yeah, Liverpool fans have done the research. So, how many should have been?
But the odds are you're going to have more touches in the box than an opposing side because of the amount of possession that you have, and it's just weird that in that length.
My man's got an agenda against Liverpool. Is that what we're going with?
No, but over a season, you'll only get the same referee probably 3-4 times. So this is over a 5-year period. It's just odd. And I'd have more respect for a manager saying that to a referee's face rather than going into the press conference and slagging him off after. Because he said it straight to his face. If you don't like it, fine. But at least he said it to his face. You know, it just so happened the camera was there to hear it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's frustrating, Matt, because look, we're all going to back our football team to the hilt. Like, for example, Leeds got a 20 grand fine for surrounding the referee after the penalty was given.
That's what I'm saying. Arsenal do it every week.
Chelsea did it, bro. Chelsea did it in the same game, Corey. Nothing.
Yeah,
Leeds
Chelsea.
United.
Chelsea's another one that are bad for it. Yeah. I know.
We got a 20 grand fine. Yet there's images of them surrounding the ref after Rafinha's penalty was given. And it's like we get a 20 grand fine for not controlling our players. It swings and roundabouts, man. That weekend, as we know, all the top 6 get penalties to win their games. Man United, City, Liverpool, and Chelsea. Now, a lot of them were very contentious. The Chelsea one, very contentious. The City one, very contentious. And then, like you say, Kev, the week after, it's like they've had a meeting and said, well, it has to be, it has to be brutal, because I would argue that the Xhaka one in the Leeds game, he should have seen red for the challenge on Rafinha. Doesn't even get looked at, I don't think. That's the frustrating thing, is that they look at some and don't look at others. But just on what Corey was saying, I think the Jota one, the explanation has been given along the lines of because he slowed down and was waiting. But like Jamie Carragher was saying about how they're slowing down because he's slowing down to take the shot. Like you can't take the shot like breakneck speeds. And Jota's obviously angling, ready to take this shot, and Emerson just goes bang. It's a stonewaller. And
that would have been the second yellow for Emerson as well.
Well, maybe that's coming to the referee's thinking. But Matt, do you agree it's a stonewaller, the Jota one?
Look, I'll be honest, I disagreed with a few decisions in the game yesterday. That's not one that I do agree on. I think it's one I do agree on. I don't think it was a penalty, but given with the amount of people, looking at the volume of people who said it was, I'll admit I'm wrong on that one. I didn't think there was enough contact in there. And I was watching the game with my dad, who's a Liverpool fan, and he said the same thing. But
do you think the Dele Alli one was then?
No, God no. Dele Alli.
I was going to say,
not a chance. I also, just let's point out, I also don't think Harry Kane avoided getting a red card because he's the English captain, which a lot of people are suggesting. And Robertson got a red card because he is the Scottish captain. Let's get that in there. No, that's a lot of crap.
No, Robertson.
So what I will say on this before I let Kev respond, they actually asked Alan Shearer on Match of the Day, didn't they, about some say that the England captain gets away with more, and he laughed and he went, "Some would be right." He went, "But can we move on?" Well, Alan Shearer was the England captain. He's basically saying it himself. And it's funny because let me just bring this up, actually. You've just reminded me. Peter Walton confirmed and said that referees do study players and formations ahead of a game. They are aware that certain players need to be dealt with proactively. Kane does not fall into that category. It has been more than 10 years since his last red card for Leyton Orient away to Huddersfield Town in League One. So therefore, that's in the back of that referee's mind. The fact that they're even discussing this, when he makes a challenge, it's like, oh, it's Harry Kane. Let's say if that was, I was going to use Granit Xhaka as an example. I just see a lot of reds. But
Fernandinho is probably your classic, your CDM.
Say Roy Keane. Roy Keane, eh?
Roy Keane,
if that's Roy Keane, he's getting a red.
Yeah.
But I do think reputation matters, though. Because like if and I'm going to use the example because I was just thinking of a second ago when Kev was talking about penalties, but if Salah is in the box and he goes down and you're thinking, oh, there may or may not be contact there, he has a reputation for diving. That's going to be in the back of your mind. Like, I understand the key thing to look at is what's happened there, but if you're unsure, if there's a little bit of a doubt in your mind, something that you know about that player, he goes down easily under contact, or as Salah does, he dives. Well, you're going to take that into consideration.
Isn't the whole point of VAR to take that away?
Yeah. Well, yeah, but that's you go back and review it afterwards. And that's the point that I was making about the game at the weekend as well. It's so much easier now for the referees to not make the big decision because they know there's someone who's reviewing that and someone who has an easier way to make a big decision. And if you're, just for example, you're Paul Tierney and you see Harry Kane flying into that challenge, you're thinking it's 50-50, you're thinking it's an orange. It's if you give that yellow and it's overturned to a red card, perfect, the process has worked very well. If you give a red card, things can kick off, things can flare up, everything goes awry, there's players getting yellow cards here and there, then all of a sudden you're told, actually, you got that one wrong, it's a yellow. It's easier to just let things simmer down, make the easy decision, and then let the people in the background make that tough decision, make the big call. It's not Paul Tierney's fault that Chris Kavanagh wasn't able to do his job yesterday. Kavanagh should have seen that and should have sent Harry Kane off. It's not Tierney's fault that he didn't. It's also not Tierney's fault that he decided to give Robertson a yellow card in what was already becoming a very heated environment and then allowed the decision to be made. I think that's a better way to approach these things, but it all comes down to the incompetency of the men back in Stockley Park.
Okay. When we finish this, go and have a look. I'd encourage everyone in the chat to do this as well. Go on Twitter, look up @DaleESPN, and he's done a Twitter thread. He does a VAR Twitter thread every Monday or every Tuesday, and he's done one today. And what he's done is compared the VAR process in the Premier League as opposed to UEFA. Now, Chris Kavanagh apparently is one of the highest rated VARs by UEFA, full stop. He gets a lot of big games to do the VAR for UEFA. He was one of I think he did the quarterfinals in the European Championships. And bear in mind, England went all the way, so he couldn't do any more games in the quarterfinal. I think he did 7 in total. And his description of how the VAR process works was that if Paul Tierney audibly described what he saw, and he had a clear line of sight for the Kane tackle, and then it's up to Kavanagh to use video evidence to totally dispute what he saw. And if he can do that, VAR could intervene. If he can't totally refute what the audible description was, he's not allowed to intervene.
So the process is the problem.
According to Premier League, PGMOL, high bar standard, that we don't want VAR interrupting the flow of the game, which is apparently what fans wanted, then the VAR wasn't allowed to intervene as long as Tierney described what he saw and the video evidence couldn't disprove it. That's the description of what Dale gave to the process in total. The difference between that one and the Andy Robertson one was if Paul Tierney described that he thought Robertson got the ball or got a piece of the ball. When you look at the video evidence, he got absolutely nothing of the ball. It was all legs. So the VAR then is allowed to intervene because the referee described something that didn't happen. He clearly and obviously missed something. Go and check it yourself. Do you see what I mean? That's the difference in the high bar threshold that the Premier League have as opposed to UEFA. UEFA are more interested in getting the right decision right.
Yeah.
Premier League.
It's quite interesting, Kev. I've just been reading that as you're speaking. And
he's a brilliant thread. He's well worth following.
Yeah.
Everyone should follow him.
Because he says UEFA has a clear approach. Any tackle above the ankle with any intensity with the sole leading, even if minimal contact or even sometimes none at all, is a red. He says, I have no doubt whatsoever in the UEFA Champions League that Kavanagh would have said this is a red card because UEFA demand it in their protocols.
Yeah.
However, the Premier League obviously don't demand it in their protocols, which is mad, really, isn't it? So, yeah, it's a process. I hate to say it, but we always mess shit up, man.
And the worst of it is for me, I love watching rugby, right? And I can't wait for the Six Nations to start. When the Six Nations start, I haven't got a clue what the new rules are for rugby this year. They change them every year. New rules come in. By the end of the Six Nations, through listening to the referees and their decision-making process and how they make decisions, we're audible. We're allowed to hear it all. We're grown adults. We're capable of understanding what referees are telling us. By the end of the Six Nations, I will be fully fluent in what's going on, the new rule changes, and I'll be grand. Now, we all watch football. We talk about football. We chat about football with other mates. We love the game. Nobody can tell me there's not a benefit for everyone in the ground, us at home, to audibly hear that conversation being had and that decision process being made. It will educate everyone as to why decisions have been made. You can disagree with it all you like, but if you're hearing the referee's decision-making process and how he's making a decision, you can like it or lump it, but that's what he saw. And judge him on that. At the minute, we're all guessing as to what the referee might and might not have said, what he should or shouldn't have said.
Yeah.
Was it a penalty? Wasn't it a penalty? We haven't a clue because we're not privy to that conversation. And for the amount of money that we pay to go to grounds, to watch it at home, we pay for kits, we pay for this, and we pay for channels and all of that stuff. We have a right to that information.
Yeah.
And
I would love that.
In 2021-22, we still don't have that. It's almost as if the Premier League, the PGMOL, don't like their authority challenged by VAR. And the idea that VAR is in place was pushed on them. They didn't want it. And the reason why I say it with Matt earlier on, apparently Martin Atkinson went into one of those monthly meetings with the referees and ate someone. at one of his colleagues because he overturned the decision that he made. That to me shows the egos of these referees.
Yeah, definitely.
That they're the men in black, they're the man in charge, their decision is my way or the highway, and what I say goes.
Yeah,
The
for
odds
sure.
are they don't want these decisions challenged because they make them.
I will say this as
Corey.
well. Like even that is that's where you want to get to. Where like even if it was a compromise halfway, we need more transparency from the referees, and we don't hear anything from them after the game. Just a bit of clarity over certain decisions. Why you did this? Why you did that? And maybe like Kev's alluded to, it is because of the egos and it is because no one wants to really give conflicting information. But that would worry me anyway, because if you've got two refs giving conflicting information, there is no consistency, and that leads to why the game is where it's at. But having been in the ground and having seen VAR decisions at times, it is frustrating. You don't know what's going on. You don't understand what they're looking for. You feel that when the wait goes on and on and on for 5 minutes, you still can't understand why. Yeah. And then you get a decision and it's done. And it's frustrating. Look, I mean, people can accept mistakes. It does happen. But at the same time, we need to find some reasoning. And I'd hope it would change. I really would, because I think it just takes the enjoyment out of football. Like I know, like I said, it added a little bit to that game and it was a bit fiery. But to be honest, we could have done without it.
It was a
brilliant
great game of football yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that was the type of game yesterday that if I wasn't a Liverpool fan, I would have sat down, had a couple of pints, and absolutely loved watching it because it was end to end. It was a great game of football. It was two great managers tactically going at it, brilliant players on show, and everyone, to a man, at the end of the game, wasn't talking about the good goals, wasn't talking about Alisson's mistake, talking about referees. And I thought we'd come away from that. And that's a flaming shame because it's the game that suffers.
Yeah, for sure. Let's move it on. Matt, can you tell me what's going on with this Europa Conference thing? What's going on? But I've heard you're lodging a complaint, are you? What's happened, mate?
Apparently, we're seeking legal advice. It doesn't seem as though we're seeking any advice with regards to reinstating ourselves in the competition, but with revenue lost from getting knocked out, because we tried to postpone the Leicester game last Thursday a week in advance to play the Rennes game, and we were told no. Leicester tried to postpone it on Tuesday. They were told no, and then on the Thursday, the day of the game, it was postponed. We also actually, according to the Daily Mail, which I know everyone will laugh at, but Sammy Mockbell, who works at the Daily Mail, who was one of the best Tottenham journalists out there, said we offered to play the game today, 24 hours after playing Liverpool, and Rennes unequivocally said no to all of our suggestions. And because we were the ones who couldn't fulfill the initial game, it's been adjudged that we forfeited and lose 3-0. So it looks like Tottenham are seeking legal advice on revenue lost, which, let's be honest, is probably not anything substantial to the club at all, but it's money nonetheless. So we'll see how that goes.
Are you glad you're out then? Like, do you see it as a bit of a joke competition? Would you not like to have had that on the record? A big chance you could have won it.
I would have loved to have won it, but I don't think the option was there. For some reason, ever since that night in Amsterdam, Tottenham have been absolutely useless in Europe. And it's not even a case of, well, if we play a stronger team, we'll be fine, because we played a full-strength team against NS Mora and they turned us over. So I think with Roma in there, with Bodo Glimt, I know it's not as easy for them with their domestic season coming to an end last week. But with the teams dropping down from the Europa League as well, Tottenham not even in my top 3 favourites to win that competition. Really? And I've said it here a few times before, the worst thing that can happen in that tournament is we get to the final and lose it. And I'm glad we don't have that risk.
How many more games do you guys got to make up now? Is it 3?
Burnley, Leicester, and the other one.
Yeah, so Leicester are going to be the problem because they're still involved in Europe, but the other 2 can be played on European nights. So
Brighton is the other one. Yeah.
It could have been a lot. I mean, Brighton still have a mounting list of fixtures now that they're going to have to make up as well. That's the thing. That's the biggest problem. Any more cancellations between now and the new year, you're into an absolute nightmare situation. Because, for example, if we had our game cancelled yesterday with Spurs, that would have been 4 games, and then anything could happen between now and Stephen's Day, now and Boxing Day. You know, there comes a time when it's going to become a real issue for clubs like Tottenham, Brighton, who've got 3, 4, 5, potentially 5 league games to make up, on top of FA Cup games and League Cup and European nights and what have you. The calendar isn't that long because of the World Cup next year. You know, the summer is already clogged up with the Nations League. You know, so that's going into mid-June. By the time the players actually go away on holiday, They're back early for the start of next season, and next season goes on longer.
I don't think the solution to that, though, is playing games when teams have COVID. Like,
So, Matt,
I don't either.
It's really not a risk we're taking. Like today, there's been 5 League One and League Two games called off for Boxing Day already in advance. And if there's any risk of the spread of the virus, I don't see any point in playing the games. It's as simple as that. It's killed 5.5 million people. What's the point in taking a risk?
Yeah,
simple as that for me.
It's quite deep when you put it like that, to be fair. But the club, I believe, we're going to play on. I think we'd initially thought that not the Boxing Day fixtures, but the ones on the Tuesday. Yeah. I think the 28th. I think they were going to be curtailed, but it looks like that's not going to be the case after this meeting. They've said, while recognising a number of clubs are experiencing COVID-19 outbreaks and challenges, it is the league's collective intention to continue the current fixture schedule where safely possible. Corey, what are your thoughts on it? Would you have preferred to see a circuit break or just football?
I don't know. I mean, I probably. I just don't know the depth of the issue, and I mean there are clubs like Tottenham and Manchester United where they had so many cases that it is reasonable to postpone those games. There are other teams where they've had a few COVID cases and they've had injuries, and then they've said we can't play. We just simply can't play, and then it's blurred the lines for me in terms of how seriously it's affecting some people, but. I actually think it's come too late. If you were going to do a circuit breaker, you probably should have done it for the league. You should have done it last week, or particularly when there was an outbreak with Spurs, and then try to contain the thing and then go forth and get your Christmas fixtures in. Now, obviously, the Prem have made a statement. Essentially, we're going to continue through it. The only thing for me is depends what the government do, but obviously, if something crops up. Maybe Boxing Day's the last day we can go to the games, and then
I think so. Yeah,
maybe it's behind closed doors for a month.
Yeah,
but
is that how? I mean, to me, it looks like the TV companies have flexed their muscles and said, "You're not missing any more dates. We've got schedules to fill."
Yeah, because I mean, who is it? BT would have been. Is it BT or Amazon?
Amazon have got some games as well over that period. I think as well
because the clubs have already had the money. They've had the money up front. So these TV companies, you take the money, you pay the piper. So they don't give a shit.
Yeah, I think that's why maybe the clubs have pushed for it as well. And I think what's good that's come out of it is that the clubs now have strict guidelines in terms of what counts for you being able to postpone your games, because I have felt it has been a little bit selective. At least now it's very much right. Okay, it's this, it's that. If you don't have young players that can't fill, then fair enough, we'll cancel it. Because we've seen Tuchel, etc., kicking off about it. And
but apparently, the Premier League medical officer is the one who verifies the injuries now and the COVID cases now. So you assume that if you've all had PCR tests before, you assume that when you get that PCR test back, you forward it on to the Premier League. So there's a documentary trail of who's got what.
It should be though, because you come on now. Clubs could say, "Oh yes."
It's easy enough to manufacture if you don't have to prove it.
I mean that would be mad if that came out that clubs were lying and stuff. Imagine that. Wow, that'd be.
Can you imagine?
A bit of a madness.
It would be a disaster. I mean, to be honest, the Premier League's handling of this from start to finish has been a disaster. Their communications have been an absolute joke. Every single fan forum that I've watched have all been in the same boat talking about this stuff. We don't know. Until today, we didn't have a clue what the set rules were. Do you know what I mean? And then the frustrating thing is today they were talking about how many players in the Premier League are double jabbed and all of that. And it's still painfully low compared to La Liga and Serie A. It's like,
do you know what, right?
They've got to do.
Obviously, there are naysayers out there, and it's their prerogative. It's entirely up to you. I'm not want to go politically or all that, but it was quite telling that, say for example, Leeds, say for example, Liverpool, Henry Winter let slip that
Man City were another one.
Yeah, City. They have a 99 to 100% vaccination rate within their squads, and none of them teams have had postponements through their own guys. And then you look at the different leagues, Bundesliga, Serie A, all La Liga, no postponements, all totally fine. Yet the Premier League, that doesn't have a big uptake on vaccinations compared to the rest of Europe, is getting, curtailments left, right, and centre. So, you can't tell me there's not a direct correlation with that. Let's be honest. But that's.
And I think it's a case that that the government are going to take this issue with fans in the ground out of clubs' hands and the league's hands.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
It needs to happen. If they're going to do it, it can't be left to the league to decide.
No,
because we all hated watching football without fans.
Yeah.
So at least if the decision comes from government, the clubs will lose a hell of a lot of money. But it's
the football won't stop. The football won't stop. It's too expensive. It's too much of a. They will stop fans going. They will stop fans going. I think once Christmas is finished, because the government don't want to push no lockdown before Christmas because of what went on with all these parties and that. You wait till after Boxing Day time, then that'll be it. Game over. 2 weeks. You know, you can see it already. Like my kids, an example, have been told, make sure you've got your laptops working. Have you, make sure you can still get on all this sort of stuff. We don't know anything's happening, but can you just make sure you be able to work from home and do school from home if you can? You know what I mean? All that
it's the same here. My daughter came home from school today. She finishes tomorrow. She's in secondary. She's doing. It would be the equivalent of her first year in A levels if she was in the UK.
Yeah,
and she was told the same thing. Make sure you bring your books home with you, just in case.
Yeah, exactly. So, the Premier League will continue. I just think we'll stop going for a couple of games. I reckon that's what'll happen. But I forgot what I was going to say. Now we've gone down a massive rabbit hole with that sort of stuff. But yeah, Corey, talk to me about West Ham. Have you been sat there waiting patiently?
I was just enjoying it. I was enjoying the back and forth about Liverpool Spurs, to be fair. Distract from our form. Yeah, no, look, it's disappointing. It is. I think probably it's worth addressing the dip in form, definitely. There's some geezer in the comment that keeps digging me out for not giving Arsenal props. So for the record, they did outplay us. They pressed us to death. And that was my biggest worry going into that game. And we couldn't deal with it. We are, like I've said many times, we're not a team that can play through presses very regularly, and particularly when you're getting it into Antonio and he can't hold the ball up, he's not playing in behind. I think he got dispossessed or he lost possession something like 27 times in that game against Arsenal. It's not good enough. And you're talking about a side like Arsenal that are so quick to regain possession. It just became a barrage, and I was frustrated in a way because West Ham earlier in the season, we could have made that more of a game. And Arsenal was a game where if we'd got a draw from, I would have taken it. But Burnley as well was disappointing. Couldn't break them down in the final third. It's just in that transition. We're just too poor. We're losing it too frequently. And again, almost Norwich is a bit of a blessing in disguise because this team do look absolutely shattered. And it does take its toll. I'm not going to cry injuries and things like that. But at the same time, it kind of, you look at it and you think January's around the corner. We need to get bodies in, whether it's 3 players in, just rotation options, get people in that you can make a genuine choice, not Vlasic in as a false 9 or Bowen as a false 9, a genuine number 9 this season as a false 9. Because and unfortunately, as a fan, I've got to a point where I'm thinking I would rather play with a false 9 and see what it looks like and just bank on us in possession than Antonio. And it's sad. You don't see a drop-off of a player that much because normally when you talk about your number 9s, a Bamford, even if Bamford's out of form, give him a chance in the box, get him on the shoulder. You never know. But Antonio, minute it dips, he just goes. So there are big worries. There are definitely big worries. And I think, obviously, we've got Spurs on Wednesday, and I'm hoping we return to some kind of form of what we've demonstrated. If we can, of course, we can beat Tottenham. But they were I was so impressed with them, actually, yesterday. It's actually started to worry me a little bit. Because I was thinking, you look at Dawson, you look at Diop, you look at the way they use their front two, stretch us a little bit and overload us in wide areas. We've got to really turn up. But injuries is a big thing, mate. No Zuma, no Ogbonna, no Creswell. He's been out. It's a lot. It's a lot to deal with. So yeah, I'm just biding my time, mate.
I actually got
Phillips available in January, apparently.
What's that?
Nat Phillips available in January. Apparently.
Yeah, you know what? Moyes he really wants him at West Ham. I think.
Oh, does he?
He does, and I can completely understand why. I think he'd be perfect in a low block. He's big. He wins a lot of his aerial duels, which is so crucial for a centre back. And I think as well, he looks at him like a bit of a project. He's 24, and I think Moyes loves his centre backs, and I can see why, because it just gives a bit of security to get the forward players on the ball.
It's cheap at that for an English centre back.
If we could get Tarkowski for 7, which I don't think we will, because Burnley will never sell him for that, then I would rather go for Tarkowski. But I don't know. The problem is centre back.
I think 15 million is expensive for Nat Phillips.
I'd say 10. I'd pay 10 if I'm honest.
Won't get up for that.
No, 15. It's got to be the 5.
And it will be because with Joe Gomez, so
I'd rather take Joe Gomez on loan. Like,
I'd rather ruled that one out. Apparently,
I'd rather. But this is the thing because
that was Villa.
We need a striker. Yeah, we need a striker in definitely. So we need to start saving money elsewhere. Unless Kretinsky's going to all of a sudden give David Moyes 35-40 mil to spend, which I don't think he will. I don't know. Lingard doesn't want to come anymore. Apparently, he wants to stay. He might. He might. But I think
big statement.
Yeah. Do you know what though? Moyes is so reluctant to buy a striker, and it does worry me a bit. He's so reluctant. He did it in the summer. He spent 30 million on Vlasic rather than a number 9, and even now he's not committing. I'm not pleased, David. I know they're not perfect, and I know they're not gonna be Antonio because you've got to bank on someone because we can't keep going through the same motion with a player that you can get 90 minutes out of him. Past that,
do you think Moyes would look at Bamford?
I don't think we could afford Bamford. How much would you want? 30 mil? 35?
I don't know, actually, to be honest. It's just I was listening to something earlier and someone mentioned about Bamford moving on at some point, and I've never really considered it. I remember in the summer, someone who's, would I say, well connected, I don't know about that, but he told me that Brighton had sniffed around. I never shared it with anyone, so I was like, well, he's not going anywhere, but I don't know, because I do think Bamford has hit heights that maybe none of us thought he would, and maybe someone like a West Ham, if Leeds United continued to struggle, might, because he would suit, right? He would work for you, wouldn't he?
He would. I mean, I don't know about his hold-up play. This is the problem. This is Moyes' big conundrum. It's like he wants a player that can hold the ball up, run in behind, play different positions, and get in between centre-backs. How many are there out there? They're talking elite. I'd love Bamford. Movement's brilliant for a number 9. Like, I'd love to see that in games against Burnley. Perfect, because you'd have the service and we'd be able to build with Bowen and Lanzini and Benrahma. It would be perfect, but we should have gone for Tammy Abraham. We should have just spent 35 mil on Tammy and just gone, there you are, let's get it done. Because this is a big problem, and I'd hate to see our season completely derail or struggle or limp to a mid-table finish because
I'm surprised you wouldn't take a punt on a Raul Jimenez.
We couldn't afford him either, mate.
Mate, look at where Wolves are. He probably doesn't have that long left in his contract.
See, I see. This is no disrespect to West Ham, but if he was to move on, I think it'd be to a Champions League club. Not in England, but somewhere would take him that would play in Champions League.
I think Raul Jimenez is. I know Kev obviously not, but I think he's criminally underrated.
I think Man United were interested in him, were they? Before
pre his head injury, I would have snapped him up in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
he's 29, 30 though. Age is a problem.
Is it though? In this day and age,
well, you can look at West Ham, right? If you're going to get him out of Wolves, hypothetically, I think it's 30.
What about Aubameyang, Corey?
Take him alone. I mean, look,
I'm a blood clot, young.
I've heard crazy stuff. I've heard us being linked with Martial, and Moyes is in a market for a player like that. So I doubt it. Obviously, I think he's going to Barcelona. I think that one's probably wrapped up behind the scenes. But Aubameyang, yeah.
Obama who?
Yeah.
But Arsenal look much better without him. They look much better without him, and I don't, that front four has really clicked. I think Arsenal have been improving in possession. I think that front four, they've been superb. And what annoys me now is that they'll bring Smith Rowe on with 20 minutes to go, and the game's opened up.
They're a better side with Tierney in it. I was amazed when Tierney didn't play for Arsenal.
He's a bell-in, though, isn't he?
He's a bell-in, but I'd rather him be a bell-in for me than a bell-in against me.
Tierney. I don't like him.
He's one of those players. If he's playing for you, he's fantastic. If he's playing against you, he's a pain in the ass. Arsenal
fans all reckon he's rock hard because he wears short sleeves.
Tucked his shirt in as well, didn't he? Love it.
As soon as he wore short sleeves, that was it. We're like, make him captain. Make him captain now.
Running out of
he's our
there,
captain. And it's like, wow, there's more to it than wearing short sleeves, maybe. But funny. It's funny, actually. And on Diop as well. Diop, I actually bought him for my FIFA team road to knockout card, mate.
You need to get the Benrahma one, mate. You need to get the Benrahma.
I've got the Benrahma. I've got Benrahma.
I've got Declan Rice, obviously. So I
bought Declan as well, but he's gone now. He's
why?
Well, to be honest, mate, I have a much better side now.
Check out today's content. Have a look at the English centre back from the Championship.
Yeah,
in the
91 pace.
championship.
from the championship.
Oh, don't stick an anchor or a shadow on him. Stick a sentinel on it. A sentinel on him.
Here we
Happy
go.
days.
Here we go. Go on, Kev.
He's your centre back until team of the year.
To be honest, I'm doing my icon
Link him
swaps
up
at
with
the minute,
Oxford.
so
Sorted.
I've got a full first owner squad, and I've got Trent in there. Trent right back.
Team of the month, yeah.
But up front, yeah, I've got Benzema and the icon Hernandez. Oof.
Oh yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah,
I got
it's
Roy
not bad.
Keane in midfield, so I need somehow. I need an icon pick.
Yeah, well, I've got the icon swaps in. This has gone to FIFA content now. Just while we're on Arsenal as well, I'm going to do it for my man JDB. It's actually 2 years to the day since Arteta was placed in charge of Arsenal. I think he's doing really well. I like Arsenal. Got the youngest squad in the league. Fourth in the table. Matt, I'm going to come to you. Are you impressed with what Arteta's doing at Arsenal?
Can we call him by his real title, please, Joe? Lego Pep. He's
Pep.
Lego Pep. Lego Pep.
Right. I remember when Lee Gunnar used to call him Tapas Pulis. I remember that.
Yeah.
Still does.
Arsenal.
Does he? Yeah.
Probably.
They win the Champions League, mate, and he will still find a way to be angry at Arteta. By the way.
Hates him, mate.
Yeah.
Arsenal are always one win away from being the best team in the world, or one loss away from an AFTV meltdown. And that is the beauty of that club, because there's just no in between for them. They either think they're going to win the Champions League or they're going down to the Championship. And they could go on a run of beating Norwich, Burnley, Newcastle, and somehow play Norwich again, 4 wins in a row, and they think they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. There's been a lot of progress this season for that Arsenal side, but they're nowhere near the level they think they are. I don't think they'll be anywhere near that top 4 come the end of the season. And I look forward to the next slight little difficult fixture list that they have, and they lose 3 in a row. And again, they'll be calling for Arteta to be sacked. There'll be protests at the grounds. There'll be this, there'll be that, there'll be the whole thing. They're just the biggest up and down club of all time. In the most reactionary sport in the world, they have somehow managed to be the most reactionary fan base there is out there. And I'm not one bit threatened, not one bit worried about them.
They're flat track bullies. They'll beat the sides they're supposed to beat, and they'll beat them handy. Whenever they're put up against a decent side, they'll struggle. They're young, and the thing is, you can see what he's building. If he's as good a manager as he thinks he is, in 2 years' time, they'll be a serious side. But
they're building something.
They're building something
for 12 years.
But at least this time, he's got away from signing, someone who's been a name somewhere else and coming to London for a retirement plan. They're getting away from that type of model. They're buying young and taking a leaf out of some other clubs' book. You look at what Real Madrid are doing now. They started building this side 2 years ago, and now they're starting to see the fruits of their labor. Arsenal will be judged in 2 years' time. But at the minute they're being flat track bullies and they're doing okay. But the asset test for them is going to be in the transfer windows. They have to get rid of some of the deadwood. Yeah. High earners, the likes of signing Aubameyang to that deal, knowing the character of the player, knowing that he's been trouble at Dortmund and he's so hot and cold, giving him the captaincy on 350 grand a week is almost as if they didn't learn anything from Ozil. They can't allow that to happen again.
It's quite the Aubameyang thing's funny, isn't it? I'm going to bring up, this is a good friend of mine who used to work with him. He's a Liverpool fan as well, Mark Brown. He says there are 5 or 6 clubs fighting for 4th place. I would count Arsenal in there. I know Matt's just said not a chance, but I would. Top 3 is nailed on: Liverpool, Man City and Chelsea. Corey, I just want to come to you because I want to shout out my man Oscar, because he did shout us all down. Me, I think I was more the louder voice when I said I can't see Chelsea dropping. And they have literally just dropped like a bit of a stone. Obviously, can't seem to get any decent results. Drew against Wolves. Only really just beat us, let's be honest, last minute pen. Do you think, like Mark said here, that Chelsea are nailed on for top 3, or are they running the risk of dropping into that 5 or 6 clubs fighting for 4?
I think they'll be all right. I don't see the problem is I don't actually see the teams below them pushing them that far. Albeit Arsenal are doing well at the minute, I'm not fully convinced that they can maintain that. I think Man United have got a way to go. Spurs, you argue, got the Conte factor, maybe the only thing. I think Chelsea just have serious quality, and for whatever reason, it isn't clicking. And I don't know. I mean, they've brought Lukaku in, and it's a big problem. And it sounds a bit counterproductive. You'd think bringing him in, they would score a bag full of goals, the clinical finisher, the player that they need. I actually thought they would have brought him in and had the system tailor-made to him, but that hasn't worked, albeit I know he's had injuries. And then since then, any of the players that have come in, I don't think they've done brilliantly. And so I think they've got too much quality, and I think Tuchel is such a good manager. He will sort it out, but I just don't see the teams below pushing. I don't see him pushing for third. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Chelsea cannot get out of this dip, and Arsenal and Tottenham and hopefully us, but we'll see, try and pull it back up. But I don't know. I think Chelsea are too good. When they're in full flight, Chelsea are very, very good, and they have been. And I think the only player out there at the minute for them that's really kicking on is Mount. And as much as I hate him giving it all that every time I see him play, he's bagging goals and assists.
To us as well.
He's a horrible little player. I don't know what's happened to him. I used to like Mason Mount, but he's
seven
starting to
for the season or something like that.
Yeah, he's doing really well.
7 in the league, he's doing well.
But you've got.
They have got the LeBron James of the soccer world as well. I don't know if any.
They do, yeah.
Have you seen that video?
That's Matisse. That is Matisse prop. That's what he's done to this fan base. That's what they're like. They love it, don't they? They get one player and they go absolutely ballistic.
Have you seen that video, Corey?
I have, yeah. It's weird. I just can't get over it. But it doesn't actually surprise me because that is what Chelsea, that's what they're like. They love these players like Hudson-Odoi and Pulisic. They're in love with their forward line, but it's not clicking at the minute. So
if anyone don't know what I'm talking about, there's a video doing the rounds on Twitter. It's from Pawn Shop, I think, or a show like that. And this guy takes in a signed Christian Pulisic shirt to be bought by the pawn shop. And the way they speak about Christian Pulisic, like it's like 5 minutes worth of them just telling absolute lies. Like they go like, "Oh yeah, he's the LeBron James of the soccer world." At the end of the video, they even liken him to Ronaldo Messi.
He's like, he's 22 years of age. Oh, man, it was so funny.
It's hilarious. Like
I just waiting the whole way through for them to crack up, and they somehow keep a serious face. And
Christian Pulisic, the LeBron James of the soccer world, my personal favourite part. So, that's on my Twitter feed. So if you've got me on Twitter, go check it out because it's absolutely hilarious. You said from what shop, mate? The Pawn Shop, Pawn. Pawn, Pawn Shop, not Pawn Shop. Come on now. Get your head out of the gutter.
Someone's mind gets wandered.
Get your head out of the gutter. We had a super chat come in from Pete Benson. He said World Cup every 2 years. I've seen a tweet about this. Apparently, it'll make football. What was it now?
3.6 billion.
Yeah, 3.6 billion. It'll be worth. Is that to the footballing governing bodies?
To FIFA.
To FIFA.
Oh, they've FIFA distributed to the national organisations.
Yeah, so it'll make them all this money, which means it'll probably get pushed through. And Pete Benson's saying it'll lead to two types of footballers: club players and international players. Thoughts, Kev? What you thought?
You're seeing it in the Ashes now, where you've got your Test batsman and you've got your T20 batsman. And I remember David Lloyd and co being on commentary 10 years ago, and Michael Holding, when they were talking about when T20 cricket started, and they all said, this is going to be the death knell of Test cricket. And they said, no, it's not, no, it's not, no, it's not. You're seeing the death of Test cricket now because you're seeing an Ashes series being held in virtually empty stadiums. That never happened 10, 15 years ago, even in Australia. That Adelaide Test match was a sellout for 5 days. Brisbane, first day, was 80,000. Guaranteed 100%. And international football is in danger of doing the same thing. They've done another deal with UEFA and CONMEBOL to try to counteract FIFA by inviting the 10 South American countries into the Nations League. So every summer now, you're going to have either a World Cup or a European Championships alternating. then you're going to have a Nations League final, and then you're going to have an Olympics. So it's when are these players supposed to rest?
Mm-hmm.
No, Salah plays. He's the king of Egypt. If you look at any Egyptian advertising, Salah's all over it, man. He will do. The Egyptian FA will do everything humanly possible to make sure that he plays as many games as possible, while clubs like Liverpool and the rest are footing the bill to pay these players. Now, either FAs are going to have to dip their hands in their pockets and start subsidizing these players' wages, or something is going to have to give. It's going to have to be a case that clubs might start looking to sign players, i.e. like Joel Matip, who've retired from international football at a very young age to concentrate on their club career. Eventually, a decision is going to have to be made by players.
Yeah, it will be.
You know,
Right.
they physically can't play. You look at Pedri at Barcelona, 18 years of age, played nigh on 80 games. Remember Michael Owen?
Yeah, I was going to say Michael Owen.
Michael Owen had his career destroyed.
Yeah, he did.
By Liverpool and by England, playing him, flocking him to death.
Yeah.
This generation of players are the fittest athletes I've ever seen. They're nutritionally so educated, so well trained, so highly tuned. That doesn't mean they're capable of playing 11 and a half months of high intensity football, traveling all over the world, and expect the same performances. Something has to give. Yeah. It's just not right. It's not fair.
No. What are your thoughts, Corey? Obviously, I hate to do this, lads, but we have a vested interest, really, because England will regularly qualify and go far in the competition. Same can't be said for your nations. I'm sorry, lads. I'm sorry.
It's true. It's true.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah. Would you?
We can't rob you anymore. You rob us now.
Would does it take the shine off you, do you think, Corey, if it was to be so like often, like we look forward to it, a World Cup, if it was to be like Kev said, every year World Cup Euros, like would it take
I don't know, like it would take the shine off for me because like everyone, because the more you see something, the more you just get used to it, and it's not such an event. But at the same time, maybe it's more opportunity either to get disappointed or actually finally win something. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe we talk about having players coming through, and there's a lot of. I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate, of course, but you play on the other side of it and say we've got to wait 4 years for this group of players to get through. There's an amount of pressure on them to perform, and when they don't, you wait again for a World Cup. You change that a little bit, you kind of think, oh, hang on a minute, we can bed in these players now, and then there's a long procedure, and all of these players will grow at the same time. So maybe it benefits that in terms of tournament experience, but for me, I really don't like it. I really wouldn't like it. It would take the gloss off it. I love the World Cup. It's something to look forward to, and even when you're in it every time.
For that as well. For ousting Arsene Wenger, which means he's now going to try and ruin the World Cup.
I don't get the entertainment factor of it. No. I don't see what he's. Again, I've probably got to look into it. I don't see what he's proposing that is better, and he's saying it's better for every continent or every country to be involved, or players to have more international experience. But I don't know. I mean, if you play something every 2 years, would it be as good as every
48 countries the next World Cup?
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
There's a straight knockout competition to even get into it. And what is the thing is, Corey, you were saying there about, you're waiting every 4 years. You're not really, because every 2 years you've got a European Cup or you've got a World Cup. So every other year you've got international football tournaments.
Yeah.
And in the mix of that, usually in a World Cup, in a European Championship year, you've got an Olympic tournament as well. What's getting completely lost in all of this is I love watching the under-21s. I love watching the under-21 Euros, because I got the likes of Cucurella coming through for Spain. When Brighton signed him, I knew all about him because I seen him play for the under-21s. Those tournaments will get absolutely, totally lost. So they have a chance to shine a light on some international tournaments. Women's football is going to get lost completely in all of this. Underage. I mean, Matt might be a bit young to remember, but when Ireland qualified, I don't know, do you remember when we qualified for the under-17 World Cup when we got to the semi-final? No. We got knocked out by Argentina in a World Cup semi-final.
Matt could play for the under-17s.
I'm an old man now, Joe.
Damien Duff and Robbie Keane were coming through at the time, and
God,
the nation stopped. The nation stopped for that, you know, and those kind of things, those moments will get lost for smaller countries as well. You know, the interest for international football in Ireland is huge. It really is. But you know, whether we're successful or not, it doesn't matter. Through every age group, the interest is there, but the saturation they're talking about.
Yeah, it is.
You know, qualifying for the Euros by default because there's 24 countries in it this year. You know, it made a mockery of the tournament up until the last 8. You know, the Euros in 2020 were a joke of a tournament up until you got to the knockout stages because they were just soft games. They were bad games that shouldn't have been in there. You know, it wasn't until you got down to the nitty-gritty of it that the tournament got really interesting. And the World Cup is going the same way. Mukhtar is right. It's money.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah,
these international nations will vote for it because their nations are going to benefit. Their FAs are going to benefit hugely from this.
And the dirty, I mean this with the best will in the world. Like it's corruption of the highest order.
Oh, it is.
And if these clubs think they can pocket an extra few $1 trillion, then they're going to do it. They're going to do it. When's that guy? What's his name, man? The Molina dude. When's he next doing a little Twitter?
Have you ever heard from him? Have you heard from him since that?
Nah. But he was supposed to be doing something again.
Yeah, he's kind of teased things, saying, "Oh, you know, keep the faith. We'll do this every now and then." But look, I'm really surprised Arsene Wenger is the one behind this. And he said today, people are opposed to this World Cup every 2 years because they're looking at the emotions and not the facts. Football is emotion. Without the emotion in the sport, it's absolutely nothing. None of us are sitting here talking to each other. Right. There's not these people in the live chat having the same conversation. Football is and will always be emotion. And the magic of a World Cup is no matter what's going on around the world, no matter what situation we're in, for a month, once every 4 years, the entire world comes together and eyes draw onto this one country, as it's usually done, onto this magical spectacle that just completely encapsulates everybody for the month. And that it's so special to have that. And as an Irish fan, I've never seen my country at a World Cup, but it's still my favourite thing every 4 years. Yeah. And I agree with Kev to some extent that the games in the Euros over the summer were a bit poor. But I think that's the magic of it. Like, you get to see Tahiti coming out and playing in the World Cup, or you get to see Panama coming up against England. I think there is a magical element to that as well. But look, it's going to completely ruin it. It's a very good point that Pete made initially there in terms of the club players and the international players. And I think to some extent that kind of does give us a bit of hope that this won't go ahead, because we kind of nearly came to that situation with the Super League when all these clubs are going into this and they were saying, well, you're not allowed to play in FIFA and UEFA competitions. Then all these players think, well, we're not allowed to go to the World Cup in Qatar. We can't play in the Euros. And I think that's when things kind of started to unravel, because once the players aren't on board, I don't know, a lot of them weren't from the start anyway, but that's when things completely fall apart. And maybe that does offer a little bit of hope. But I don't want any decision like this to be made on anything other than emotion.
That is the power that FIFA currently have. Yeah. My gripe with the Super League was only the relegation side of it. Everything else, I completely agreed with.
Oh, Kev, get in the bin.
No, and the reason I'll tell you exactly
get in
why.
The bin.
It would have got UEFA. It would have got UEFA out of club football. Completely out of it.
You're so blinkered by Liverpool, man. It's unbelievable.
There's so many. Every time the TV rights revenue deal comes up, Super League comes up. Super League has been around as a concept for 20 years. More. I remember. Were
you fuming? Were you one of them fuming when Leeds United?
No, I wasn't, because I got it.
All these no,
I got it straight away. I understood that it was never going to.
How dare they put them shirts out?
No. You won't find anything online by me saying anything remotely close to that. I hate UEFA, and I hate the power that UEFA and FIFA have over club football, because of the fact that all clubs and all club fans fund the world game through ticket prices, through TV revenue, through TV subscriptions. You wait and you watch what UEFA plan to do for the next lot of Champions League and Europa League and Conference, and the volume of games that UEFA want clubs to play. And then you'll see where the Super League were coming from. The volume of games that are going to be foisted onto clubs now.
Yeah, but you wanted a monopoly, man.
As well.
You wanted a monopoly.
But they have the monopoly. They already have the monopoly, and they have the power. And they flexed it when they threatened to take players away from international football. And they will keep doing that until a cohort of clubs who are big enough and strong enough to take them on. At the moment,
No, but let's be
that
honest,
just
Kev.
doesn't
Right,
exist.
Kev. Let's be honest. The reason this was pushed, right? The reason this was pushed and still continues to be pushed is because Real Madrid and Barcelona were in the shit and are in the shit.
Yeah.
Had they not ever been in the shit and not been told they can't spend the money and not had to move Lionel Messi on, this would have never come. This would have never been. It's because they have no money. Why does Leeds United have to be relegated, lose everything because our owner overspent? That's how it should be. That's how it should be. We lived the dream. We got burnt by it. Why is it that Barcelona and that were like, oh, no, this isn't on. I tell you how we'll share the wealth, by buying your best players. No, that's not how football works. Florentino Perez and his little cronies, he was like the Sith Lord. He was like the Sith Lord on Star Wars, man. This is what that shit was turning into. And honestly, it was horrible, man. And I'm really quite surprised to hear you sort of like backing it.
The best thing that happened to Barcelona was the Spanish government turning around, and the Spanish league turning around to them and saying, look, your books don't add up. Enough is enough. They haven't been able to do the same with Madrid because of the politics in Spain. But the way the Spanish FA have structured their league now and the finances within their league, that the clubs have to work within a framework, has been needed for a long time. And other leagues could do well to follow that lead. It won't take much for any Premier League club, and I mean any of the 20, and any of probably the 12 in the Championship, to go absolutely bust chasing a dream. It's crazy the spending that goes on in football, because if it wasn't for sugar daddy owners, the league and the wages that are being paid at the moment are completely unsustainable long term. It's not practical when you've got players on 400 grand a week and you've got maybe a club wage bill that's 80, 85, 90% of your overall income. That means you're dependent totally on TV revenue, full stadiums all the time, and everything going hunky-dory. And all it takes is a stiff breeze, and COVID has proved that that can happen at any time. The restrictions that need to come into place for financial fair play across football in general won't be led by UEFA. They won't be led by FIFA, because they're as bent as a 9-bob knot. The only hope that I could see was club owners at least have a vested interest in wanting a sustainable model that lasts, because it's in their interest not to be putting their hand in their own pocket all the time to try to keep up with the Joneses. Long term, that cannot happen. It has to change. And unfortunately, as long as UEFA and FIFA are in with so much control, unchallenged control, then football will never change. We are stuck with what we are, and we're going to be told what we're going to have, and we're going to like it, and that's it. Unfortunately, that's what FIFA and Wenger's policy is going to do. There's nothing that can change that now, unfortunately. There's
I never forget.
Enough power. That's the problem.
Yeah, and do you know what? Chris Brack, who's been on here before as well, good man from the Trippers, said, there is that, obviously, that invite legacy European clubs as well. That all got pushed through, didn't it? Which again is brutal. So there is. Listen, I don't know enough about it. I'll just never forget.
Florentino it was bad. It was terrible the way they did it. But I remember going back years ago, Joe. There was a thing they wanted to launch called the North Atlantic League, that would have incorporated Scotland, Belgium, the Netherlands, and the Scandinavian countries into a domestic league of 20 clubs to compete with the biggest clubs in Europe, to compete with the other leagues, because on their own, they thought, well, the Celtic and Rangers are big enough, but they're too dominant in their own league. Copenhagen wanted involved in it. Dublin wanted a team involved in it. Ajax and Eindhoven were too big at the time in the Netherlands. So they wanted to come together and form a league. And it was the national FAs of those countries that put the kibosh on it with UEFA. But 20 years ago, that would have been something to see. Do you know what I mean? Because it was the time when Ryanair started to come into force and short-haul flights weren't a big problem. Fans were traveling, a quick flight to Amsterdam for an away game 2 or 3 times a year, whatever. It would have been interesting to see. But at the minute, there's so many one-horse races going on across the continent.
I'll never forget what you said at the start of the show, Kev, right? That the rest of the English Football League must thank Liverpool for giving City a run for their money, which is basically what you said in a roundabout way.
That's true.
We are not worthy.
You are not worthy.
Sorry for being here.
They would be going for what? How many titles would City have had now? 6?
No, listen, I didn't pick it up at the time because you and Matt were going, but I was like, my man's saying we really should be thankful for Liverpool.
Yeah.
I can imagine Klopp around the round table. We should be thankful for us. Look what we're doing to Pep.
If it worked for us.
All right, let me put it to you this way. You look at the Bundesliga.
Thank you.
Bayern Munich win it every year. PSG will walk away with the French league every year.
No, but they didn't win it.
They're not even the reigning champions, are they?
No.
Sorry? Yeah, I know,
Lille.
but it's not, it was an anomaly, to be fair. It was Lille, and it was an absolute anomaly, to be fair. It really was. It was weird. But in the general rule of thumb, there's too many leagues across Europe that have one dominant club. At least the Premier League has 5 or 6 really good clubs. When you were talking about the top 4 earlier on, I honestly think Spurs are the best placed position. Now that they're out of Europe, they're in the best place position to challenge to push Chelsea, maybe push Chelsea into 4th. There's almost no doubt in my mind that Spurs are good enough to get into the top 4, especially with the shape.
Matt couldn't believe his luck.
He was buzzing.
Jay is right.
Do you know what? I seen one content creator back this idea. He's an Arsenal fan. And I can give it to him. He's Corey's buddy Lee Gunner was backing him. And I was like, this guy's off his head.
I'm not going to say too much because Geezer's going to cane me on Wednesday after he beats us 2-0. So I'll just have to wait on that.
Well, I think we've been down a rabbit hole. We've done an hour and 45 minutes. Wow, time flies when you're having fun. Right, I put all the guys' channels in the description. You've got Corey on the West Ham Way. You've got Matt from the Matt Hayes Tottenham blog. You've got Kev, who is part of the LFC Day Trippers gang. Make sure you check them out. As for me, look, from us all, Merry Christmas as well. I hope you all have a fantastic Christmas. For those that are watching this live or will watch it back later, have a smashing Christmas. Enjoy it. Try and enjoy it if you're a Leeds fan, because we've got Liverpool Boxing Day, so you'll you come down with a bang. Believe me, because
eggs by then.
that's I'm not looking forward to that game. I can't lie. I'll try I won't try. I will get a preview out for that. Thursday, is that Christmas Eve?
Nah, mate. Nah.
Friday's
Christmas Eve, isn't it?
23rd.
Christmas Eve. So we might be back on Thursday. I'll speak to the lads off there, see what they're doing. They might be got to see families and whatnot.
Lox is probably on holiday. He's probably in Greenland or something.
Yeah,
Christmas.
Aye.
Or his last cracks the whip. One or the other.
Pulls the plug on the Wi-Fi. Sorry. Gosh.
Definitely. Right. I think that's it then. Thank you very much, as always, for coming on. Merry Christmas all, and we will see you again soon. Peace out.